It's time for In the News. The U.S. government, according to this Bloomberg article, is preparing an emergency rule to protect workers from COVID. Several observers, primarily legal folks that pay attention to this kind of workplace policy, are paying attention, and this is what it might look like. The Federal Occupational Safety and Health Administration, known as OSHA, is preparing to issue new short-term regulations to protect workers from catching COVID-19 on the job. Most private sector employers in the U.S. must follow rules for workplace safety set either by OSHA or by state-run versions of the agency. Now, this all seems very boring for some of you. You're like, okay, Ken, you just told us about OSHA and COVID protections. Well, here's the deal. You're talking about federal regulation that would force multiple things that employers would have to do, and many of them don't want to do it. And it also costs a lot of money. And it affects their employees, primarily masks in the office, all kinds of other standards. And here's the deal. You could be one of these people that go, hey, Ken, I think everybody should wear a mask in the office. Great. But what you've got to understand is where you got some people that go, I don't want to. I feel safe there. It doesn't matter what they think. Yeah, it kind of does, because that affects the employer. Here's the point. I'm not worried about the continuous. I mean, it's on the mask thing. I don't know if it's 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, 80-20. I don't know. I don't pay attention to it. But then there's going to be other things that are going to be implemented, certain type of cleaning. And I don't know if you saw this, but the CDC came out last week and said that there is very little evidence of any spread of COVID based on surfaces. So all of the spraying surfaces and spraying desks down and all this kind of stuff, this is what the CDC said. Look it up. So where does it end? And is this the new normal going forward? Every time flu season comes around, we've never done this before. We got a bunch of scared people. I don't know where it's going, but here's what I do know. Anything that comes from the federal government on this has state implications, and states choosing whether or not they're going to abide by this and implement it. And you will see lawsuits on this. And not like people that are anti-health, but just going, look, this puts a tremendous burden on business owners. And if you increase costs there, or you have a lot of employees that go, look, I'm not going to do this. I'm leaving. You could lose talent over this. So whatever your opinion is on mask or no mask, how long you should wear them, blah, 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 blah. Who are you waiting on to tell you it's safe to live? I don't know what your position is. I really don't care. I'm not going to argue with you for 2 seconds. But what I'm telling you is the Biden administration is pushing this. Something's coming down. This thing will be fought, and it will also be applied in some places, and it's going to increase costs. It's going to cause tension in the workplace. So why do I even bring this up? Because the people still have power. And your leadership in your company needs to hear what you think. Your congressmen, congresswomen, senators, governors, they need to hear what you think. They all care ultimately about one thing, and that is staying elected. Don't forget that. That's my point. I personally, no idea when all this ends. I really don't. I mean, like at what point, Joe? By the time we get there in the fall, then what's the next strain? What's the next thing that comes down the line? And I got to tell you, I think some people will politicize this, not for power, but for, I think you're going to see unions. I think you're going to see a lot of employee organizations. You're going to see employees individually try to use this as power to stay home and never go back into the office, which again, all the power to you. But what I don't like is when government gets involved and increases costs for business owners. Because here's the deal. Whether you agree with my opinion on this or not, you cannot dispute the fact that when government puts regulations in place that cost businesses more money, those costs get passed on to the consumer, which means it's more expensive for you to live and purchase. And secondly, it cuts jobs. It just does. So you can say whatever you want about my opinion or my philosophy, but I can tell you my reason for it. I want as many people as possible to be able to work, do work they love, excel in that work, and make the difference they were created to do. And when government interferes with that, I'm going to speak up. Let's see what the chat room says, shall we? Let's see. Christopher says, too much federal government control and it's going to hurt the economy and society. I agree with you, Christopher. So there you go. Do you want to decide what it means to be safe? Or do you want your leaders to decide for you? Political leaders. Now, if company leaders decide to do something, that's part of the deal. Whether I agree with it or not, that to me, it's like that's the private sector doing things the way they want to do it. You have every right to do it, whether I agree with it or not. That's the deal. But government putting it on us, I don't like that. I do not like that at all.